Hello, everyone, and welcome to another GamePad interview. This is our first interview of the day. My name is Nigel. I'm the co-founder of mayamada and organizer of the GamePad Online event. So if, for those that don't already know, as part of GamePad Online, we talk to games professionals about their journey and about big topics in the games industry. So the idea is to give you an idea about, how to get into the industry, how others have done it, and what you can learn from that. So right now, I am speaking to the founder and CEO of Renaissance PR, Stefano Petrullo. Stefano, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cool. How's it going?
All good. As I was mentioning, I had a very active day today. I'm now pretending to be very calm, but hectic time for PR and communication in video games.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're going to get into that because I'm interested to speak to everyone when we do these interviews, but PR because it's actually something I don't know too much about. I'm pretty sure I'm not good at, but I'm going to find out a bit more from you. So before we get into that, just to let people know that you can always give us your feedback in the chat. We've got a live chat going. We've also got our Discord. So you can always, even after the interview, continue the discussion. If you have any thoughts about what we're about to get into, you can let us know. And there's always shouting at us on social media. So we are at mayamada on Twitter, at mayamada on Instagram. So you can let us know your thoughts there. So Stefano, if I have this correct, you've been in the industry for about 25 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Sounds right? Yeah, cool. All right.
I started in 1991, so
cool.
Pretty a long time ago.
Okay. That's a good chunk of time. So yeah, you've got experience like planning and implementing campaigns for some of the biggest games that people might have heard of, things like Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry, just to name but a few. So generally speaking, when I talk to people, I like to know how you got here. So what were you doing before you got into games? Has it always been games, or did you come from somewhere else? Like, how did you get to where you are?
It's a funny story, but it's a kind of story to make it short, because again, 25 years in the industry is a lot to discuss about. But I went to school to become a programmer. And then I found that it was extremely boring because it was like, I like it, but it just I want to be more involved straight away. I didn't have the patience to spend 5 years. And at that time, the industry was very in its infancy, especially in Italy, which is the country where I come from. So I had the chance to start writing for a video games magazine called Zap 64. Which was originally was a British magazine that's been published also in Italy, so there was an Italian version, and it was recruiting for young video game players to write reviews. So I started when I was 16, and then by 18 I was assistant editor for Zap 64. So they was basically I was being given game, play and write reviews.
Okay.
When you are 18 years old, it's probably
that's perfect. Yeah.
And
dream job.
That was fantastic. And from then my career started moving very quickly. So I started as one of the youngest journalists for video games in Italy. I became the youngest video game magazine editor in Italy. And then I moved to what they call at that time the dark side of the industry, public relation and comms. We are the bad people.
Yeah. I've heard rumors. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, there is no way to do. So I was the first video game PR in Italy, one of the few first. Working for a video game distributor, and then more recently in 2006 I moved back in the UK, where a German company took an Italian guy to do public relations with British people. He was such European Union type at that moment. And then after a year and a half, I've been offered a job from Ubisoft. Again, French company took an Italian guy to work with British people.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
I love these connections.
Yeah. It was 7 years where I learned a lot, and I was head of communications for Ubisoft until 2015. When I decided, in the middle-age crisis, turning 40, I said, I opened my own agency, and my wife was like, are you sure? Yeah, I've done this for so long, and I just wanted to accept a new challenge. And I actually not accepting. I made my own challenge, and now is this is the 6th year that Renaissance is operating, and started in my old house bedroom. We are now 8 people, 7 in the UK and 1 in the US.
Cool. Okay. Wow. So. Well, yeah, we're going to sort of unpack a lot of that, but it sounds like you pretty much went straight from school into games.
Yeah.
Okay.
I horrible at doing the DIY stuff in the house. It's actually my wife doing it. I think I was lucky because I managed to go to evolve a passion straight away in a job, and I traveled the world because of this job. Not now because of COVID, but I traveled the world because of this job. I moved country from the UK to Italy, so it started like a dream with a Commodore 64, and then here I am now with an agency, and have enough people crazy enough to work for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. All right, so before we go any further, I just want to clarify some like terms and things because, and this is partly for me, but can you explain, like, so we've got PR, so you mentioned PR, we've also got marketing, and then we've got like advertising. So what is the difference between those three? And particularly for PR, what stage of the game's production process are you coming in at or are you working at?
So one thing I would like to say is that it's for everyone. It's just when I started, if you want to work in the games industry, you need to be a programmer. This is why I started that school. In 2021, if you want to be in the games industry, you can be anything. You don't need to be a programmer, and programmers are great.
Yeah, I used to be a programmer.
Yeah.
For a good 4 years. Yeah, not in games, but just in general.
Yeah, they used to be. Oh, you need to. If you want to work video games, you need to be a programmer. A programmer is great, and I know programming language because I studied it. But you can also be a creative. Now we got artists. We got loads of things that you can do. Video games is such a massive umbrella of career that you can apply based on your time. Coming back to your question, is marketing is what includes communication on PR and advertising. We are a function that we are a function of marketing. So with marketing, you create the market, and to create the market, you use different disciplines. So from one side, you have what is called earned media, which is involved public relation and communication, which is my primary job.
Okay.
So my job is talking with media and talking with content creator and doing what we call it a pitch. So if I go, an Assassin's Creed game, or I can go and speak with the Sun or the Telegraph or Eurogamer, and I say, would you like to review this game or to talk about this game? Because one of the things that make this unique is because it's historical context or it's an open world game. So my job is a constant conversation with media and content creators that are not paid, by my clients. They decide deliberately to cover a game or not based on the interest they got.
Okay.
So that's the part that, you know, there is no money exchange between journalists and publishers. It just we send the game, we do a pitch, and if they like, they write about it, and they write whatever they want without control. Then you got what is, when you're talking about advertising, that's the complete opposite. So the publisher create a message or create a trailer. I'm sure you guys saw a trailer of a video game.
Yeah.
A trailer is something created by the game creator or the publishers or the developers. And this being sent out to media, or is being used to book advertising. And advertising is basically you pay from the space to have your trailer features on the banner of a website, or the TV advertising is something you buy and you have full control. And this is called paid media.
Right.
So in marketing, you have marketing on the top, and you got earned media and paid media, and then you got social channels and all stuff. I don't want to complicate too much. So I am the person without the money, and the marketing and it's the people that have the money to spend. It's two different disciplines.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it's about, like, from what I understand.
It makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get that. So it's because you say, like, you're speaking to, like, press. So you mentioned, like, the Sun and Telegraph and games media as well. So you've actually answered one of the things I was wondering, because it's about those relationships, and I guess you're not just speaking to games media, because to a certain extent, and, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is if you're working for Ubisoft and you've got a game and you're going to a games media, surely they know everything, not everything, but they already know what you're pitching to them. But then someone in the Telegraph or someone, they might not be as clued up. So do you find you have to sort of pitch things differently depending on what publication you're going to?
Yeah, I mean, when I used to describe my job to my mum, that she probably doesn't know exactly what I'm doing, and it's very difficult. But to summarize, my job is putting people in the best possible condition to talk about my product. And putting the best possible condition, one of the aspects is exactly what you said. If I talk about a gaming website, it could be Eurogamer, it could be MGN, GameSpot. The challenge there is giving enough content with the right timing to write an extensive article.
Right.
If you go to the Telegraph or the Sun, you need to give them a reason to write about your game. So from one side, you have a challenge about the gaming journalists to give game journalists enough time to test the game and knowing everything about the game. With the more mainstream media, you work more on giving them a legitimate reason to create legitimate interest about writing about your game.
Okay.
And with my agency, we work with small games made by 2 people to massive game made by 300 people. So every game is different, and some games, they're not going to be covered by mainstream because they're too niche and small. So our focus is go more to the gaming media, while we launch a game about George Orwell's Animal Farm, and we end up on the BBC, we end up on the Guardian on page, because it's George Orwell Animal Farm.
Yeah.
And the game is just a platform, but the message is, this Animal Farm, you need to know about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Okay. You mentioned sort of small to big. So let's talk about the big, and you spent time at Ubisoft. So from that point, you'd already been writing about games in some capacity. How did you get the job at Ubisoft? And almost as importantly, why did you decide to leave? Because because you mentioned that you were a kid writing about games, then eventually find yourself at Ubisoft. Surely that's job done. So what were you doing, and why did you leave?
I think so 2 reasons. One, when I was a journalist, I reached a point where I was editor-in-chief, and I was very happy where I was. And I think it's more like one of my trade is, after a while I get bored, so I need new challenge every few years. And because I was a journalist, I thought surely I can use my expertise to speak with journalists by companies that need to speak with journalists. So what best from an ex-journalist to speak with journalists? So, and this was one of the things that I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to try this. And I tried this in Italy before moving to UK. And in Italy, I was working with the biggest Italian video game distributors. I can mention names of games that was very famous at that time, but I launched the original Diablo 1 back in the 80s, back in the 90s. So it when internet started. This was the main reason was a change. I want the new challenge, and I found myself at ease to speak with people that was doing my job before. When I moved to the UK, I already had like 5 years experience PR, but then was a new challenge because I didn't know any British journalists. So I say, whoa, what am I going to do now? So I started with Koch Media, which is at that time was a video game distributor, and it was really all hands-on, and I'm extremely grateful because the team was fantastic there. And then after 1 year, I went to Ubisoft, and I remember my interview at Ubisoft was why you want this job, why you want to work at Ubisoft, and my answer is what became actually one of the mission of my company, and it was like I want people to be in the best possible condition to cover Ubisoft game, and have a relationship between a company and an individual, which is something that is not common anymore in those days with social media and stuff. We tend to see numbers and big corporations speaking with each other, but my job is heavily based on personal relationship, and this is what it make me want to change and keep in this bubble of public relation.
Okay. And what was that consideration when you were now at Ubisoft, and the pros and cons between going to, or the relative security of being at Ubisoft and the absolute risk of starting your, like any business, but particularly like in PR? What was that consideration and to make you take the leap?
I think from Ubisoft to Renaissance, it was a very interesting time of my life. I met my girlfriend at the time, which has become my fiancée, and now she's my wife. I was, after 7 years, I think I need a new stimulus, and there was a lot of movement in the indie development at that time. So I say, you know what, I maybe can do something different in the way that I can go to bring my expertise, which is I'm extremely grateful to all my previous employees, Ubisoft, Koch Media, and for in Italy. I want to bring my expertise and do something which is I am completely responsible and accountable. So when you work in a big company, and I have to give credit to Ubisoft to be one of the company in my career, and I work for a lot of them, that listen to them, to employers and stuff like that. So I was able to contribute with strategy and stuff. But still, you're part with a giant mechanism of like 10,000 people. So when I left, I ended up being by myself, working with a company called Revolution Games, which is famous for adventure games. And and my first game I launched with Renaissance was Broken Sword on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 4. I believe. Yeah, it was both. And I start having, you owning the project. You have a client to respond back. If you do something right, it's you. If you do something wrong, it's you.
It's a direct line of responsibility.
And it's scary. When you have no experience, it's scary. But at the same time, I say, "Oh my god, I enjoyed this so much." I remember having an idea. I was having a shower. I had an idea to do something at a video game show, and I called Sony and say, "Oh, I want to have my client on stage talking about the history of Broken Sword as an adventure game." And Sony said, "Yeah, no, let's do it." And 2 months after, I was on this massive stage at the Eurogamer Expo in London with Charles Cecil, which is the creator of Broken Sword, having this massive amount of people, like I tell you, about 100 people that they was fan of him, and they was coming from all over England to meet him and sign autograph. And these say, "Wow, that's an idea to come out on the shower." And I went to Sony asking, "You guys, we're working on the PlayStation 4 game. We want to showcase the game to public. We do a call to action." And boom, it was fantastic. It was like, this is incredible. So I think to answer your question, summarizing the fact that you are responsible, accountable of everything or almost everything that you do is probably the biggest motivator for me to change from a beautiful company and like Ubisoft to just going solo.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'm like hearing you talk and remembering, like I said, I used to be a software engineer, and there came a point where I made a decision to leave the company I was at, because I'd started mayamada, I'd started this brand and I wanted to focus on that. And I'll like hold my hands up. I thought it was going to go a certain way, and it did not go that way at all. So when you left, did it, or has it gone the way you expected? And what surprised you about like starting your business that you weren't expecting when you first left Ubisoft?
I was having a terrible fear that because I don't have a brand as big as Ubisoft, I would have not have people would never listen to me because I don't have a big game made by 900 people behind me, which is super anticipating. And what I discovered actually was the first 3 months was quite slow moving. So setting up the company and everything, and try to go and speak with the people that you know in the industry and say, "I got this new idea. I want to do PR in a different way. I want to work with good people." So, but then it started, and with Revolution first, start working, and I think I define Renaissance about, I call it ethical PR, because I got very strong value in the way we communicate things and how we treat people. And I think after the 3 months when I started having my first clients and the first launch, still start slowly speed up. So I started having more people contacting me, and I just want to say, I want to do a little thing and I want to take my time slowly. So initially, I had I was incredibly scared about not being able to, to sustain my family or to have the same level of job that I had at Ubisoft and Koch Media and everyone else. But actually, what turned out is that you have so much control on your life when you go solo, that if you take calculated risks, if you look and have enough due diligence, you actually can have a very successful career. There is challenges because at the end of the day, you cannot blame anyone if things going wrong.
Yeah.
When you are in a big company, it's a bit more easy if stuff doesn't go the right way.
Yeah.
If one of my launch doesn't go well, and sometimes happen because I'm far away from perfect. You have to blame yourself essentially, and what decision you didn't do right.
So you talked about this idea of ethical communication, and I saw it on your website, and it jumped out to me, not just because you had it in big fonts on your website, but just it kind of highlighted the perception of PR as unethical. So what do you think, like, is that to say there's a problem with PR? Because I know if I think about PR, I have a certain perception of it, which is not always good. But what do you feel like you're trying to do differently through your company, and what impact do you feel that has?
I think when we talk about ethical PR, what is important is that I mentioned PR is basically a no-win scenario. If you work in PR, you either pissed off the client, or you pissed off the journalist, or you pissed off the content creator. The really good skill is essentially taking care of everyone. This is what I mean with ethical PR. And how you can take care of everyone is in the way that I see is that there is three things that are part of our value as a company. We want always to be accessible, so a journalist can call me anytime or a client anytime. My wife sometimes disagrees because, we work with American clients and stuff like that. Sometimes but accessible is the first thing. Transparent is the second thing, and transparency is something that I think is important because, especially in PR, if you're not transparent, you're not going to last long. If you take too much time to respond to a request from anyone, either a journalist or client, you have to acknowledge, you have to be present. And transparency for me is telling to a client or to a journalist, to a client that maybe his decision is not the right one to do, and to a journalist is saying, look, what you're requesting to me is not possible because I don't have this answer for you. And despite the fact you say no to a journalist, people are gonna appreciate it when I see a lot of tendency of non-responding or actually, being very cynical in the way you treat media. And honestly, as an ex-journalist, I wish journalists get paid better and more and have the chance to actually create this amazing piece of content that they do in more investigative journalism or reviews. The problem we have is that there was, to some extent, a good PR always go back to a journalist with transparency.
Yeah.
And the third thing is being factual. I'm going to be factual to the people that I work with on the two sides of the spectrum. So journalist and client, when I say you can get this piece of coverage on this publication because your game got, 5 levels and 12 weapons. So the factuality paid with the accessibility and the transparency make what I define ethical. There is PR that are, I'm not talking, if you talk about the perception of PR, you've been seen as manipulator, liars, and people that hate journalists.
Yeah, okay. Right. I'm glad you said it, because I didn't want to offend anyone.
No, but this is a perception that it happened. I mean, if you look, I don't know if there is a TV series called Scandal.
Oh, yeah. I've not watched it, but I know,
I'm a big fan of Scandal. I watched it. It's a mix between White House politics and this woman that she got lots of power, and is in between a PR person and a lawyer. So
Okay.
she got an amazing amount of power, and you can see how she manipulates people. So you know, it's you know, in my job, you know, you can decide to manipulate the messaging and stuff like that. But those three terms is something I don't think they reflect what actually PR are. I mean, you have bad people and good people in every work. Every work you do, you got ethical people and unethical people. I'm very humble in saying that, but I've been doing this job since 1997 as a PR, and I think it's a proof that you can be ethical, you can be accessible, transparent, and factual without doing stunts or something that can be cross-border. Because at the end of the day, you can use the communication tactics to get more coverage, but then you go and then people want to write about negative stories.
Yeah, and
this is the main problem. Negative stories get more traction on social media than positive stories.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So, but for me, ethical is being accessible, transparent, and factual. Now, sometimes you face the fact that you've been asked questions that are not relevant to what you're working on, and this when these negative perception happen, because when you are in an interview supposedly talking about a video game, and then you get a question that maybe the developer we work is not prepared, and we just need to be simply say this is not what this is something I cannot answer because I don't have an answer.
Yeah, it's about like being upfront and honest.
Yeah, but that is payback, and this is payback because there was a little story that I've been in interview where you can see the journalist was kind of not attacking, but trying to get this tabloid headline out from a video game, and the person that I was representing, he was literally answering back saying, "It seems like this is something you want me to say," and he literally on the record say that, but in a non-conflictual way. It was absolutely a lovely conversation, and because there was transparency in this, the journalists, there was no confliction. What two individuals were talking about a video game, and because the answer was so upfront and respectful, it didn't create any scandal or anything. It just get published, people get their own opinion, but there was no negativity about it.
Yeah.
While we sometimes face in the PR, if you use cheap tactics, you have cheap results. That's what I want to say. If you want big tabloid headlines about a scandal, I don't think that you're doing a good job serving your clients or your company or serving the journalists that you work with.
So you touched on social media, and I'm trying to think how to phrase this question, but I was thinking about PR today and kind of part of the impact of social media, because I feel there used to be a time where, as in the marketing process, you can put out a message, or as a person in PR, you can build a relationship, put out this message, and people would accept it, more ready to accept it. Whereas I feel now people are more skeptical, cynical. So how do you do PR now where people are more and more skeptical of messages that are put out, especially from big companies? Like, what's the different challenges in that?
I think before social media, you tend to reach your consumer towards traditional PR. So what you're doing, you talk with the journalist. The journalist tests the game, write an article, and the consumer read the article. So the journalist was kind of
like a gatekeeper. Yeah.
Gatekeeper of all the information. Social media changed that, and content creators changed that to a point that this cynicism now is incredibly high. So it's unlikely to see a PR person talking to consumers because it's the company that want to talk with the consumer.
Yeah.
So,
because they can talk directly.
So part of my job for some of the clients we have is deciding what to say and when. So, for example, when we're gonna announce the release date of the game, or when we're gonna unveil the new hero of a game, or the setting of a game. And this is part of my job as a strategist. Now, how these get communicated then, it's gonna go, the messaging is made in a certain way for journalists, which is that one more detail about, the certain main character of the game.
Yeah, or maybe like mechanics or something.
Context, how many weapons, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So long messaging. Then you go to the social media video. On the social media, they're gonna say exactly, the information is the same, but it's worded in a way that is the company that you talk about the consumer. I remember when I was at Ubisoft, we started exploring the first direct-to-consumer event where, there was the social media team that was speaking directly with the consumer, the community manager.
Yeah.
And my job was speaking with media. So social media are an integral part about communicating directly with consumer. While PR, they're using what they call a bit of intermediary, like, we talk with media talk with the consumer, we talk with influencers and content creators, they talk with the consumer. So we're more managing the people that consumer are interested and the consumer direct.
Right, okay.
So it's a tiny difference, but
so is it almost added an extra layer onto your role?
Layer.
Yeah.
It's more than an extra layer. It's an extra channel. So you used to have one channel which was media, like printed papers.
Yeah.
Then you have two channels. You have printed media and internet.
Yeah.
And then you have now media, or whatever media is online or printed. Then you're gonna have social media, and then you're gonna have a content creator and streamers and influencers. So you've got three channels that you have to manage. So it's very exciting, but the media landscape is changing literally every 6 months. Something you did 6 months before probably doesn't work now anymore.
Yeah. No, I can imagine it just added that complexity to it. That's what, just in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to like yourself many years ago, and the idea of that person starting out. So a lot of people that we interact with through GamePad, through our work experience, are young people interested in getting in the games industry. And as someone who has worked for a company and started their own company, what advice would you give to a young person who maybe has seen more of like, indie developers or whatever area it might be, and thinking they can do something like that? Would you advise someone to go straight into starting their own company, or maybe work for a bigger company and gain some experience that way? How would you advise that?
I think the first thing is I'm a very passionate person. I'm Italian, just the cliche Italian, full of passion. So I think there is a lot of conversation about making your passion a job, and I was one of the lucky persons that managed to do that. The only thing I think is important is yes, you can make your passion your job, but you need to make sure you don't jump over a cliff without any type of preparation or I think calculated risk is probably the best expression to use. I mean, when I left school, I remember my dad wasn't happy because he said, you can go to university and blah, blah, blah. And he said, I know, but I want to have this risk. And if things going bad, of course, I was still living with my parents. So I can have a backup plan.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the games industry is amazing in the terms that he offers a lot of opportunity, and while it's still behind where we would like to be in terms of a diversity, gender gap, payrolls, in an industry that is extremely sensitive and evolving very quickly. So compared to other industries like cinema and TV, the games industry, when we realize something doesn't work and it's wrong ethically, it reacts very quickly because we are a young industry. So I think my suggestion for anyone to get into the industry, don't get scared about the difficulties that you can probably face at the beginning, and try to think where you want to be, but do calculated risk. So if you're very good at school or university or anything, jumping the train too soon probably is not a good idea if you don't have a place to land.
Yeah.
Personally, I left because I've been offered a job. Otherwise, I would have probably continued my study, finish the study, and then get into the games industry in a different route. And I always suggest, if your first job in the industry, go and work for someone, because the reality is that, yes, we are a lovely industry. Yes, there is a lot of people that help each other. But launching a video game today, even for an indie developers, that, even if you launch a small video game, it costs money. So you need to be able to sustain yourself. If you decide to launch your own game by yourself, you need to start thinking about how am I going to pay the bills for. The minimum is probably 12 months if you're lucky. But in development for an indie game, you can probably think about at least 2 years of development just to account all the stuff that can go wrong.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. We had on our podcast, a recent episode of our podcast, we spoke to an indie developer in the US, and he was saying when he started his game, the company's Cleaver Soft, so they made a game called Earth Knight. So Rich Siegel, he was saying that when he started, they thought it would be like 6 months to a year. It took them 7 years to make this game. I'm not saying I think it might be an extreme, but it's that kind of, it will take a long time kind of thing. It's not going to come out instantly and you're just going to sell millions of copies. These things take time.
Yeah, also don't think that, a lot of people will come speaking to me and say, oh, I'm going to do Minecraft. Look what Minecraft is. They say that's a one story out of an harsh reality of people that, they didn't make it. So calculated risk, passion, and also try to learn from people that got more experience. When I started, the industry was so young, it was very difficult to get an insight, and there was no internet, so communication was incredibly slow. Today, if you want to get into the game industry, there is plenty of places where you can get education almost free. There is seminars, events, networking. So do your due diligence from the beginning. Start speaking with people. There is someone I met a few years ago. He was 17. I met in Brighton at an event called Develop.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not a game developer. He was a lovely guy that was trying to get into the games industry. And he started hanging out at Develop with me, started talking. And if I look at him now, in 2021, probably 4 or 5 years after, he's now running his own company up north, and he organizing the British VR Awards, and he was incredibly inspirational to me because it reminded me when I was his age, I was trying to get into gaming. He did his due diligence, he speak with people, he decided what he wanted to do, and slowly build up his own company. Now he video production. He's not a game developer, he's worked more in media. But it's a person that inspired me a lot because he was so passionate, but also such measured in the way to build up his own company. So, but yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good advice. All right, before we wrap the interview, just wondered in terms of like, because you've been in the industries for so long, is there any like funny story you can share with us about your time like working in PR?
No, I mean there is loads of stories that I can share. So I need to think a bit about something, but there is I think that the story about this particular guy is something that he really touched me and it really warmed my heart, because as I say, we met at Develop in Brighton, and he was saying he was in a party organized by the organizers. So it was this this ceremony, and was an award ceremony, and then people stay around for dinner and drinks. So something absolutely normal and very civilized. And he approached me and he say, "Look, I just who are you? Blah blah blah." And he got it because he spot my accent to be Italian accent, and he's Italian obviously. So we start talking about our where we are from in Italy and stuff like that. And he started building up this dream he's gonna have to work in the industry, want to be a journalist or a developer and stuff like that. And we stay in touch for a few months, and we was keep seeing each other at different events. And then one day he called me and he said, "I want to invite you out for dinner, Stefano." I said, "Okay, this is fine. What's happening?" And I'm gonna find an Italian restaurant. And at that time he was based in Colchester.
Okay.
And he came down to London for work. And he said, "Well, let's go out for dinner." And I said, "Oh, fantastic! This is an Italian restaurant." And we start talking. And he was saying, "Look, you know what? I'm organizing these VR awards. I have a company now." And we're talking about someone that was 19. So 19 years old. And it was like, wow, he bought me dinner, and we continued conversation about our idea. And then he's created this academy that is an academy that is involved discipline about virtual reality and augmented reality, but not in the game, just connect to the game, but everything about medical, advertising. So such an inspirational guy, and it literally we don't speak a lot at the moment because of course he's very busy, I'm very busy, but I got such an amazing remember of this person driven by passion coming and have a chat, and where is he now? So it's enlightening to us.
That's really cool.
Especially because I used to be the youngest person in the room, and now I'm the oldest. So when I see this thing, it's like, whoa, amazing.
Circle of life, that's what it is. No, that's a really good story. I think, for any kind of young person kind of thinking about how to make their steps, whether it's through a company or on their own, that's a good kind of story to keep in mind.
Everyone should, and the way I see is everyone, and I see this because I'm old. I'm a bit older now, but it sometimes society puts you in boxing. Like you need to be an accountant, or you need to do this particular job. And this is something, it's part of the society. You're never going to be able to change those labeling exercise that you have in everything.
Sure.
You need to buy a house. No, I don't. Why I need to buy a house? If I can pay rent for all my life, I don't need a mortgage. But society generally give you labels and put people in certain category and boxes. When you start your career and when you're young, I think you need to decide without those labels. You want to be an astronaut. Be an astronaut if you want. Don't stop because there is only because maybe astronaut is a very difficult job. You want to be a programmer. You want to be in the games industry. The thing is, as soon as you have, as I said, calculated risk and you plan it, you can, I think you can achieve and always learn and listen, because that's the social media in 2021. We are exposed to so overload of information.
Yeah, boy.
That if you find the right channels, you have all the tools to get in any type of career and in any type of game industry position. I mean, I would never imagine to run my own company when I was 17 and writing Sub 64.
Yeah.
I still don't believe why people work for me, because I'm a horrible boss, but they still doing it. No one thinks it.
That's I like that. No, that's really really good advice. So Stefano, thank you for joining me. It's been really good to hear your journey and the stories that you've sort of come across along your time.
Fantastic. It was a pleasure to have you, and if you have any more questions, if you want to have me again, more than happy to be anytime.
Cool. I might just hold you to that at some point. So it's on record as well. So we got that. But for anyone watching, thanks for watching the interview. We do many interviews like this. The aim is to open up awareness of different careers in the games industry for those who are maybe interested in behind the scenes, but also might want to have a career in games themselves. So as always, you can check us out at GamePad.events. You can join our Discord and continue the conversation if there's anything that's piqued your interest in this interview. If you have ideas for future interviews that we can do or other roles that you're interested in, let us know. And like I said at the beginning, you can always shout at us on social media. We're at mayamada on Twitter, at mayamadatees on Instagram. And one more thing before we go, if you have liked the sound of my voice and want to hear more, check out our podcast, Story X Story. We're on all the places you can get your podcast from, and we talk about stories. We do deep dives into stories across pop culture, plus have interviews with creators across industries such as gaming. So you can check that out at mayamada.com/StoryXStory. So until next time, hopefully we'll see you in one of those places. Stay safe, and we will see you later. Hey there, I'm Nigel from mayamada. Thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other great videos we have on the channel. You can also join the GamePad Discord and check out the next event at gamepad.events. We'll see you soon.